Data-Driven Digital Agriculture webinar series. In this series, we invite innovators, thought leaders, business leaders, practitioners, civil society representatives, and World Bank teams, which are working on transforming agriculture food systems using data-driven digital agriculture approaches. This is the 56th webinar in this series, and we have about 4,000 people who are registered in this network on this knowledge and learning effort. And this webinar series is also available on our website, which we will shortly show in the chat. And also you will find that link at the bottom of the announcement. It's also available at the Open Learning Campus platform. Open Learning Campus platform is a platform where people from all over the world accesses for knowledge and learning material. So these materials, the recordings and all are available to you, will be available to you. The presentation, the recordings will be available to you after the event is over, and we will show you the links there. As is the etiquette for these virtual events, please do not interrupt the speakers and mute your mics so that we have an uninterrupted event. And please type your questions in the chat window anytime during the webinar so that we can harvest good set of questions, because our moderator will take some of these questions and put them to the panelists today. We are very fortunate today on this very exciting webinar on digitizing farms and agriculture and food value chains for smallholder for this playbook webinar, which we are having today, which I think is a very exciting thing, and I'll let Lisa talk about that. It is building the digital marketplace for food. And I think as a run-up to the United Nations Food System Summit, there was a Future Marketplace Playbook was developed by a diverse group of stakeholders, and they were working on the innovation lever of the summit. And the playbook is very, very, very exciting because it has identified many business models, 26 across food systems, and also describes 12 current use cases. So first time this material has been bought in a very attractive way from the market perspective. And it also talks about how this collaboration platform can be built for supporting development of this ecosystem for a digital marketplace there. So we are fortunate today to have Lisa Schrader join as a moderator today. And Lisa is leading many programs with Mercy Corps now, Accelerate and Agri FinTech also. She's a known thought leader in this field. She has also worked on financial inclusion with CGAP earlier, and where she led a lot of initial work on financial inclusion there. And she has worked across geographies on agenda of financial inclusion, and is a known thought leader on the digital agenda on agriculture and food systems. And she also brings a very unique perspective because she brings the fintech and agtech together, and is also supporting and helping us in Kenya develop the ecosystem for this innovation there. So and she will introduce her panel as she goes, because we have a very exciting panel here. They are all leaders in their own right, and I will not introduce them, and I'll let Lisa introduce them. And first, we are seeing all these people together in a first time. And I think she's also joined by Helena Laurent from the Consumer International. So the most exciting part of this event is that we're bringing farmer perspective, the private sector perspective, and the consumer perspective together in this webinar. Over to you, Lisa, and please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Parmesh. Can everyone see the screen? I was going to just kick off with a few of the highlight slides from the Digital Marketplace Playbook. Parmesh, can you see the slide?
Yes, it's very clear. It's very clear.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks so much for this introduction, Parmesh, to the group that's contributed to the development of the Digital Marketplace Playbook. As you mentioned, this is one of the outputs from a diverse group of stakeholders engaging in the innovation lever at the United Nations Food Systems Summit. There was a data and digital working group, and I know the World Bank was very active in participating in the data and digital working group. A lot of the work that was done in that group was focused on data sharing, and the specific work of our subgroup was focused more on the business models of what you can do through data sharing and what can be enabled through digital innovation. One of the most important themes, of course, of the UN Food Summit is food systems transformation and innovation. And so our group, which was led by Mercy Corps and Consumer International, together with the World Economic Forum and a wide range of other players, really tried to focus on the different aspects of what is needed to create a sustainable food system and how digital services and data can enable that. We tried to take a very holistic view of the problem, that our current systems are not sustainable. As we know, there are 690 million people who are undernourished, more than 10 million lives lost annually to unhealthy eating patterns. The smallholder farmers of the world are the largest group on Earth, that would be considered the global working poor. And obviously, we are also facing challenges around climate. So as we began to work as a very diverse group on a reference model to understand how digital and data could transform food systems, we drew on a number of concepts and frameworks. This first one was originated at FAO, trying to understand how we get to sustainable food systems through economic impacts, environmental impacts, social impacts, and consumer impacts, and really try to understand inclusive growth, safe and sustainable consumption, eco-sociological progress, and green growth, and really kind of try to come to that core. We'll go ahead and give you a spoiler right now that there are no solutions that do all of this that we could find looking the world over. But what we did find were a number of organizations beginning to work into this challenge. We developed what we call our digital food systems reference model. So this is the ideal for us. This essentially traces from agricultural production through to food manufacturing, access to market, food consumption, and food waste, all of the different levels of the cycles of food systems. And from my perspective, working leading the AgriFin programs for Mercy Corps in Africa, we really have focused more on the agricultural production, food manufacturing, access to market side, but so many different perspectives were offered from members of the reference group. And what we began to see was the potential for digital and data, not only to do a better job in each part of the reference model, but also for digital data to be able to share in real time across the different aspects of the market and the different sections of the market to create more efficient and more inclusive solutions, and linking producers and consumers in new ways. So I think that we're going to have a great conversation today with our CEOs who are really covering almost every aspect of this, but in different ways and all across the globe. So the case study, and I think in the chat you'll see a link to the full playbook, essentially looks at 30 different business models and created 12 global case studies on organizations that we believe are truly innovating across digital and data to address different aspects of this reference model, and also to connect parts of the reference models in ways that we think can drive digital food systems transformation. And I'll just go through very quickly. You'll hear very soon from some of the case study, some of the CEOs from our case studies, including Twiga Foods, who's one of our partners at AgriFin here in Kenya. And we've been working with Twiga for a long time to use data from farm to fork and digital innovation, and our CEO will be speaking to that. There's also a case study from Safaricom's Digifarm platform, also in Kenya, which reaches more into the smallholder farmer continuum and has really broken through a lot of the barriers of using digital services and a platform approach to drive inclusive growth for smallholder farmers. We'll also be hearing a really, I think, our most inspiring case in terms of scale from Pinduoduo. And then we'll also be looking into India at the e-commerce models that are evolving there, and Raj will be presenting one of the cases there. Across these case studies, there were emerging opportunities or models that we identified that were really driving data-driven, interconnected digital innovation for inclusive food systems. And so just at the top level, I'd say we saw that digital platforms that include food markets, supply chains, smallholder farmers, consumers, and incorporate waste management, food waste management, and green and climate smart solutions are really emerging as scale drivers. We also saw a range of players like Ethiopian ATA, FarmStack, and others working in a second model around collaborative data management. This was also something we saw in a great model called Red de Alimentos in Chile that identifies food deserts and areas where there will be food waste, and uses digital data and data mapping tools to bring those players together. And then we're looking also at innovative data hubs and breakthroughs that can build the partnerships that we need to see. And later on, we'll be hearing from Tule Lanea from the Kenyan government about their idea on food innovation hubs. But this is just a quick snapshot of where we went with the playbook. We believe this is practical application, it's innovation in motion, and some really promising business models. From our perspective, really working on the agriculture production side, we were very happy to be joined by our partner and Consumer International to be giving us a different perspective on how digital and data can build more inclusive markets. So I'll go ahead. I believe Parmesh has already given Helena a bit of an introduction. Helena leads Consumer International, which brings together more than 200 companies around the world to advocate and to learn around consumer rights and consumer representation. And maybe Helena, I know that you've sent through some slides. I'll close this one down and pull your slides up, and maybe you can go ahead and start your remarks, and I will catch up with you with your slides.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Just a little bit of a correction. We are a network of consumer advocacy rights NGOs and organizations around the world, each of those in 100 countries. So present consumer rights and consumer protection is present in all types of country around the world. And traditionally, I know when you start a conversation about agriculture and food systems, it's brilliant to start with the farmer and the needs of the farmer. In this case, let me just tell you a little bit about consumer advocacy and why we got involved in this piece of work. And then I won't repeat what Lisa has already covered in the playbook itself. We'll get into the conversation. If we can go to the next slide. This just reiterates the strength of consumer advocacy everywhere. This is a fundamental part of getting the marketplace fair, safe, and sustainable for everybody. Consumer advocates do a whole range of things, which I'll share with you in a second, but they act as the voice of people in the marketplace. And really, you see that is strongest in fast-growing and robust economies. But more importantly, as we go through incredible changes, that voice is so important to maintain trust. We see that not just as we talk about sustainable consumption, as we talk about massive systemic changes, but also as we build technologies together. And of course, this is a voice that can help us reach tipping points. So that's the sort of our excitement in coming into conversations about different systemic changes, is that there is both a means of being inclusive and also a force for change. Now, if we can go quickly to the next slide, I just want, because everybody on this call is a consumer themselves, and I hope you are aware of your own consumer rights, which are enshrined at the United Nations. Every country has guidelines, even if they don't have a Consumer Protection Act in place. And this is not about consumerism. This is about your intrinsic needs. This is about making the marketplace work for people. And so having access to the essential goods and services, that vulnerable people are protected, that there aren't hazards to health and safety, which is a fundamental need in so many food markets. I also want to highlight the points about consumer education, specifically related to environmental consequences of consumer choices and promotion of sustainable consumption patterns. The other bit that is relevant for this conversation is that our online markets, as they soar, should be as safe, if not safer, than our traditional markets. And that need for protection in e-commerce, in data and digital, and the protection of privacy, but also the global free flow of information, is another thing that we come to the table with. Now, if we flip to the next slide, there are a bunch of ways in which consumer advocates get involved in the conversation, all the way from public awareness about the need for change on all of these points to innovation. And that's sort of really the excitement for getting involved here, because if we can innovate with trust by design from the outset for both consumers and for farmers, then we're onto a winner. And I want to flag that, you know, there are different ways of doing of building the marketplace with collective consumer empowerment. And actually, some of this was discussed together between consumer advocates and farmer advocates in the run-up to the UN Food System Summit. Next slide, if you can flick to that. We're fully aware that what we eat is just one part of the vast changes for consumers in the world. For COP26, we talked about all of these 6 areas, all of which need dramatic change. We called for fast, fair, and accountable change and shared some pretty pragmatic ideas. Within what we eat, this is very much about how the supply chain evolves, traceability, better connectivity. And so all of that together, you know, the need for change, the need for innovation, the opportunity for our marketplace to be fair, safe, and sustainable, and the linkages between consumers and farmers was why when the WEF reached out and said, Helena, would you mind leading this bit of work? I was up for it, even though it was a sprint. Lisa has already shown a couple of the following pages, so I'm just going to touch on them briefly. If we can flick to the next one, I think, you know, this is adapted, one before, Lisa, if we can. I think if I were to do this again, I would love to see the farmer voice on here as well. I think we were great in bringing out the consumer impacts, but the important piece is that we always start with a recognition of people's needs in each of these areas. If we could go to the next slide. This piece, I think our central visual can definitely be evolved also. Let's face it, even that circular model can be pushed further if we think really cleverly about how data and digital can be applied to the current food system, but imagine what that will be like in the future. I think there will be far more opportunities and examples of use cases to put on this slide, and I think that's what we'd like to do. I'm going to flick forward too, because I can talk a little bit about Rey de Elementos. This was a fantastic example, and is probably one of the closest to the consumer voice. This was an example from Chile where they take the issue of food waste. They made sure that they reached 260,000 vulnerable consumers in 2020. They did that by being really efficient and clever with transport and storage infrastructure. And this is a great example, as you'll hear later on, about how government support can assist. So in this case, a tax reform in February of 2020 incentivized the delivery of products that would otherwise have been thrown away. So another great example from the group that we found in a very short space of time of how the sort of collective effort can be made to work. We can flick to the last slide here, just the next slide, sorry. My comment on this, and you've seen this before from Lisa, there are many ways forward, but I'm going to think back to those consumer rights. In each of these cases, as we innovate and as we build, let's think about how this is done responsibly, inclusively, transparently. You know, when we think about how we see big technology now, it is all about how do we make sure that that can be interrogated, that is used for social good, and that the voices of farmers and consumers are actually engaged at each stage of the process. So for us, I think there's a great opportunity for next steps here, even if it's just finding additional examples of organizations. You know, many of these started out and were launched in 2015, so massive opportunity, but finding those that really have this sort of needs-based view in mind to test our hypotheses here, and I think to build support for businesses, governments, and others who are leaning into this opportunity. Certainly, we see consumer advocate groups who are reaching out directly to farmers to create these linkages, and there's a vast amount of excitement and interest. Let's work on this together. Thank you, Lisa, and a great thanks to all of those who are part of this sprint process also.
Thank you so much, Helena. And now I think we've hopefully been able to frame to you what the reference model is for the digital marketplace playbook. And now the really interesting piece comes forward to talk to the CEOs and directors who are leading the solutions from the playbook and listening to their experience. So what we'll do now is go ahead and introduce our CEO panel. Each one of them will be first spending 4 or 5 minutes just familiarizing you, telling you a little bit more about their solutions, with links to the reference model, where they fit into the reference model here. And then we'll go into a bit of a discussion and then Q&A. So as Parmesh had mentioned, would really like for you to just, you know, on a running basis, just throw any of your questions in the chat for any of the speakers, and we'll come back to them toward the end. So we'll get started first with a quick presentation, I think no slides, from Amandi Kassidi, who is the current director of the DigiFarm solution, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Safaricom in Kenya. DigiFarm has grown over the last 5 years as a digital platform for smallholder farmers to access on basic phones. They've registered over 1.4 million farmers and providing with a wide range of services. They've made huge strides that we have documented in the playbook around really building engagement from women, by women. Before working at DigiFarm with Safaricom, Amandi worked for many years with Diageo across Africa and in 8 African nations, working a lot on supply chain, really growing their network of smallholder farmers contributing into the Diageo business lines. And also he's worked with the Agricultural Transformation Agency in Ethiopia, and other players across the continent. So Amandi, why don't you go ahead and introduce us to DigiFarm? I'm seeing an exclamation point next to his name. Do you think we've had Vivek or Parmesh, do you think maybe we've had an internet drop? If so, we can go ahead and go on to our next speaker, and I'm sure he'll join back in. Have we lost him? Okay. All right. So maybe what I'll go ahead is go on to the CEO of Twiga Foods, Gebeltal Getachew. I didn't ask actually how best to pronounce your last name, Gebeltal. Gebeltal is the CEO of Twiga Foods, which is one of the real leaders across Africa, based originally here in Kenya. He has had long experience building Twiga Foods into a B2B food systems innovator. And before that, many years working with Coca-Cola and other logistics and supply companies across Africa. So maybe we'll go ahead and start with you and Twiga Foods.
Thank you, Lisa. Am I audible? Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for having us. Just want to do a quick intro about Twiga, and then look forward to any questions you may have. Twiga was founded in 2014. It's a B2B e-commerce company. Just to give you some high level numbers, we are about 1,000 associates. We are currently in Kenya in 12 cities. We have 700 or so different products, from fresh produce, FMCG, and staples. We have registered about 120,000 customers. These are small shops, dukas, kiosk, mama mboga, the corner lady who sells small units. We are platform based. Our platform is called Soko Yetu. We generate 75% of our orders and revenues through our platform. We make 10,000 deliveries every day, and this is done on a 24-hour promise from order to delivery. We are at Twiga. We are basically building the future of retail in Africa, to making food affordable, quality food affordable. And when we mean affordable, as you know, in sub-Saharan Africa, 60% of the daily disposable income is spent on food. And once you have that magnitude spent on food, that leaves very little for anything else. If you compare this to the first world, this was a case in early 19th century, 1900. And currently, if you take USA, for example, an average, they spend 4 to 5% of a disposable income. And this is as a result of being able to consolidate demand through investment made in infrastructure, logistics, retail, etc. And the only way we can get there is through technology. At the center of the retail challenge in Africa lies in fragmentation. On one side, you have millions of farmers and hundreds and thousands of manufacturers, and on the other side, you have this retail infrastructure, the informal trade that controls 80% of the economy, which is in hundreds of thousands. And nor the farmers or the manufacturers have the ability or capacity to integrate that demand. So what we do at Twiga is, using technology, basically we consolidate that demand. We are able to bring in together the demand in one place, so as to provide farmers a ready market and manufacturers in a way to get to market quickly. Our value add wheel starts with value of low price for high quality. As a result of that low price, high quality, we are able to attract our customers, who are the shop owners, into our platform. And once we have them on the platform, we provide value-added services, fintech solutions, and easy access to various products, delivery on time and in full. And this traffic allows us to attract more customers and increases the traffic. And as a result of that increased traffic, and the scale we have achieved, we are able to further push down prices and be able to provide that low price, high quality, and efficient and very predictable delivery to our customers. And basically, our cycle starts with low price, high quality, and our scale allows us to get there. So that's what we do at Twiga, just as an overview. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take.
Thank you so much, Ibertal. And I know that one of the very first projects we did when we got to Kenya was, and this was early, it was 2015, was credit scoring for your urban retailers. So little mom and pop shops with very limited cash, trying to get fresh foods into the low income parts of town. And the Twiga commitment to using digital and data for credit scoring to get these retailers access to food at any time during the day. To meet the needs and bring the cost of fresh food down has been a real game changer in Nairobi, I know, and it's been exciting to watch your solution grow across Kenya and beyond. We'll look forward to hearing more about that in a minute. I know that that Amandi is trying to log on. He's having a little bit, maybe hitting a firewall issue. So maybe I'll go ahead and introduce our next speaker. Raj from the Kalgoorlie solution. Raj is a serial entrepreneur, worked on many digital platforms in agriculture in India, and currently focused on Kalgoorlie.com, which is a digital convergence platform for agriculture and rural livelihoods. Kalgoorlie connects all kinds of stakeholders, so it's an ecosystem play in India, and he has previous background with Honeywell, Microsoft, and a lot of the tech giants that he's bringing forward into this social innovation. So Raj, please go ahead and tell us more about Kalgoorlie and where you are now.
Thank you, Lisa. Hello, everyone. Sorry, this is a platform slightly longer, so please bear with me. Kalgoorlie is a convergence platform for the agriculture ecosystem. It connects, as Lisa said, all the stakeholders in a massive network with gratification for everyone in an integrated fashion. Millions of interactions actually take place all the time in the ecosystem, and where Kalgoorlie digitizes them and groups them into core services, inputs, outputs, and consumers. In core services, we connect enablers like government departments and farmers. Here, enablers run interactions like extensions, micro-targeted push, engagement with farmers, and such. In fact, core services is like an impact ERP, helps enablers manage their efforts better while helping to remove information asymmetry. Core services also helps in FPOs to manage their operations digitally. In fact, one of the largest FPOs in India run all its operations, including its banking, on Kalgoorlie. Effectively, for us, core services bring farmers on board and, more importantly, generate a lot of data, including farmer profiles, farm activity, crops, crop calendars, even to the level of questions that they have asked. So currently, Kalgoorlie works with many government departments, donors, NGOs, and a few million farmers and women's self-help groups. Then Kalgoorlie has a network-based input marketplace that works in both B2B and B2C. Basically, we migrate the core services farmers as customers of the input marketplace. Learning from the core services is used to anticipate and aggregate the input demand, and then facilitated, connected with the suppliers. And inputs here not only fertilizers and pesticides, but also credit and insurance as such. In B2B, the aggregated demand is connected to the suppliers, and negotiations are enabled through our innovative assisted commerce model, where our back office helps FPOs or farmers and suppliers negotiate and transact. B2C is again an innovation where inputs happen through our social e-commerce app. We call it Kuber, Kalgoorlie Uber, which is a kind of Uberization. Local youth, women self-help group members, or other rural micro-entrepreneurs are onboarded as resellers, where the machine anticipated input needs are pushed to them as leads, which they share with their farmer friends and add a small margin on successful transactions. The Kubers also will do the last mile delivery for us. Then we migrate the producers with whom we help with information and inputs. We migrate them as sellers in our output marketplace. All the data so far helps us to anticipate and aggregate the supply. Network-based activity data also helps in creating tamper-proof, rich auto-generated traceability. Again, it's auto-generated, not created. Anticipated supply is automatically pushed to the marketplace along with nuances in a particular commodity trade as a checklist to walk through, then marketed to the potential buyers. And here again, our assisted commerce helps in making sure sellers and buyers negotiate each and every term, condition, which is often misunderstood, and come to an agreement before transacting to help reducing any disputes. We also empower FPOs and groups with inventory management so that they can participate in the trade directly without taking help from the local aggregators. On the platform, again, settlements happen through an escrow account. Finally, we enable producers and rural micro entrepreneurs to reach consumers directly through our collaborative commerce model. Our focus is to empower consumers to discover products of their choice, transparent, traceable, and authentic with respect to the source of the origin. This is achieved through a network of consumer stores, each representing a geographical or a logical area. For example, we have a store called Swayam Sikkim for the state of Sikkim in India, specializing in the products from Sikkim. This runs with a set of fulfillment centers operated by local FPO farmers. Stores like Swayam Sikkim and stores from other states are then connected at kalgudi.com to enable discovering products across India. Orders are split and pushed to the respective stores for fulfillment. We have actually currently 4 state-specific stores and 1 integrated store running currently. Our social e-commerce resellers, Kubers, also participate in our core services in, say, taking an image for a small fee or selling inputs, selling consumer products in local areas, or also in value additions in the output bulk transactions. These act like a glue connecting the stakeholders across the ecosystem. Effectively, Kalgudi converges all the ecosystem players on a network-based integrated interaction platform. And it took 6 long years to get to this state. From here, by end of 2022, our target is to reach about 5 million users and 50,000 SKU in the input store, and handling most of the agricultural produce, and having at least 10 states covered with respect to the consumer stores. And last but not least, our Kubers, we are targeting to achieve about 500,000 Kubers working across India, connecting all these dots. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Raj. Really appreciate that, and obviously the aggregated, the aggregated purchase power of women's groups is something we've seen across other markets working, including Digifarm. I think we've got Amandi now plugged in. So Amandi, would you like to go ahead and give us a short presentation of Digifarm? Crossing my fingers this one works.
Yes, Lisa, I'm joining shortly, but it's like struggling a little bit.
This is Kenya. Okay, I understand. This happens. Let me go ahead and introduce our last director speaker, Xin Yi Lim, who's the Executive Director for Sustainability and Agricultural Impact at Pinduoduo. She's responsible for corporate strategy and innovation and sustainability in agri-tech. Before joining Pinduoduo in 2018, she worked for Singapore's Sovereign Wealth Fund, GIC, both in Singapore and New York, and as a tech and media analyst in the public equities division, coming with a background and a bachelor's degree at Oxford and a master's degree at Harvard. Very impressive what she's doing. And Xinyi, if you could go ahead and introduce Pinduoduo to the group.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you to the World Bank for having us here today. So just to introduce Pinduoduo very quickly, we are China's largest agricultural platform. We're currently connecting over 16 million farmers with about 870 million consumers. So 870 million is almost the entire e-commerce population in China. So almost everyone who is an e-commerce shopper in China is a user of our platform. And we really started around agriculture. So in 2020, we had about $42 billion worth of agricultural products transacted through our platform. We were founded in 2015, and we first started out with agricultural products. So it's really been the center of our business since day one. And our focus right now is really on how we can leverage, agri-tech R&D and apply it and help to further digital inclusion, right? So that we can build a better agri-food system that is more efficient and also benefits consumers in terms of access to quality and affordable foods. And we recently launched a 10 billion agriculture initiative that aims to address critical issues in agriculture and rural communities. So linking it back to that reference model, that circle that Lisa and Helena mentioned earlier on today, we started out more on the market access, food consumption part of that circle, and we are expanding into the other parts of the circle around, say, the upstream production or food manufacturing, given our access to the consumers and increasingly more and more farmers. So just to flesh it out, how we're trying to do that, I think the opportunity that we spotted back in 2015 was that the agricultural sector in general was very underpenetrated. It wasn't as digitized as other parts of the economy, but in 2015, the conditions were right. So we already had pretty high mobile phone penetration. We already had a lot of people in China who had the lower cost smartphones. The internet infrastructure was also getting built out rapidly. And we also had a lot of users who were just getting the hang of mobile wallets. So it was convenient for farmers to get paid, for consumers to pay and make transactions. And the physical infrastructure, which is an important part of our story, has also been invested in over the last few decades. So I think drawing a comparison against what Yellowtail shared earlier with Twiga, what we are doing is aggregating demand on the consumer level. And we are able to do that in China because the infrastructure can support the delivery of the agricultural products to the individual consumer level. So we are focused more on the consumer end rather than the business end. And our platform is focused more around trying to give users an interactive and fun experience. So because it's a recommendation feed-based experience, we are able to help influence supply and demand such that when there are cases of oversupply, such as during COVID, where there were imbalances, we could actually show the products that were in oversupply to the consumers and help to draw the consumers' attention to those products that needed a little bit more demand. And then over time, what this does is that it's also reducing food loss and waste because we're helping to mitigate some of these imbalances that occur from time to time. And as we think about expanding more onto the upstream to help make production more efficient, we can potentially reduce food loss and waste starting from what is being produced. So we are also working together with local agronomic institutes, as well as agri-tech companies, local governments, to try and bring technologies closer to farmers. So we have what we call Duoduo Academy, which focuses on providing courses for farmers to build up the human capital layer so that they can actually learn how to start businesses online. And at the same time, through our platform, we're also working with the agronomic institutes to deliver some agriculture-related knowledge. So whether it's planting or pest control or crop protection, things that are practical tools that they can use. And then through some of the pilot farms, we're demonstrating how some of the technologies like drip irrigation or drone spraying can be implemented with these smaller farms, which are prevalent in China. And because it's connected through our platform, ultimately we are also able to funnel quite a lot of demand for these smallholder farmers. So it gives them confidence that when they start building a business on Pinduoduo, they are able to access a lot of consumer demand. They are able to access a lot of interest. And over time, because we're cutting out a lot of the unnecessary middlemen by connecting the farmers more directly to the consumers, in some cases, we've seen farmers making 30% higher income. So they are able to reinvest more into their farms, while at the same time, the consumer is also benefiting from lower prices, fresher produce that's delivered to them in a shorter period of time. And going forward, we're hoping to expand more on the upstream agri-tech side of things, so that we can bring in younger people and also make the farmers more efficient. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Xinyi. I think it's really interesting that Pinduoduo and also Twiga Foods and it sounds like Kalgoody, really kind of starting more from the consumer side of the equation. And I think our last speaker here, who's moving around a little bit in his time window, there you go, we got you. Amandi is representing a platform at DigiFarm that really actually starts from the producer side and has grown sort of organically up from the farmer side to reach the market side. So I think it's going to be interesting to look at how all of these different business models evolve. And Amandi, are you good? Are you ready to go ahead and present?
Yes, I think so, Lisa. Can you hear me okay now?
All good.
Great. Sorry about that. Sorry for the delay. Really glad to be here and to listen to the other speakers as well. So Digifarm is a fully owned subsidiary of Safaricom, Kenya's largest telecom company, and one of the larger ones in Africa, pioneers of M-Pesa, the money mobile transfer service as well. So the move to Digifarm was part of Safaricom's journey to transition from just being a telecom company into a technology company. So what we do is provide a platform for smallholder farmers to access end-to-end services. So the ambition is to enable the farmers to do what they've been doing, only much better, much cheaper, much faster, and therefore get better outcomes from their fields, and then connect this produce to markets as well. So we have an end-to-end view of what the farmer needs, and we try to do that through digital means. Back to our first speaker, we're quite aware that first of all, our farmers are also consumers. So in Kenya, for instance, a lot of the smallholders consume up to 70 to 60% of what they currently produce. So it's really important that even as we think about how we enable them to do what they're doing better, that we're aware that they're going to keep quite a bit of what they produce for their own consumption, and then they're going to sell some of the output into the markets that we offer. So to give a bit of detail in terms of how we do this, so there's a USSD platform where farmers can self-register. So it seems a bit of a trivial step, but it's taken a lot of development to get here. They can go on the phone and without any other human intervention, perform KYC, check against government databases, make sure that the person you're dealing with is actually an existing farmer. And they do that on the phone without any additional involvement from any person or any human being elsewhere. Then we get into a process where we help them map their fields. So we've geotagged in our system about 150,000 farms across Kenya. So in addition to knowing that you're a real farmer and you're in what value chain and what services you may need, we know where the farm is. We know if your area is suitable for a certain crop or not, and we know whether it will be accessible at certain points or not. So there's a big step around geotagging, which we do actually at no cost to the farmer. So both the registration and geotagging and information are provided completely free of charge to farmers. But to quickly then correct any possible misconceptions, so Digifarm is a fully commercial business. So we have set out to make money, but in doing that, our primary goal is to help farm get the ecosystem partners also doing so in the process. So after geotagging, farmers can buy inputs, so they can dial on their feature phone. They can buy fertilizers, seeds, pesticides, all pretty much any input that they will need to do their work is available on the platform. And we do that in collaboration with our partners, the manufacturers. So we negotiate with them, we agree prices, we agree locations, and they make the services available to farmers through that platform that we have. A big area for us has been information and extension. So we have a lot of farmers who may not have exact information on how do I grow this crop that I've been growing for the last 20 years more successfully than I've done it in the past. And that's an area that has been taken for granted quite a bit, but we find that there's a lot of interest from farmers in learning how to do what they're doing better, grow faster, varieties, seeds, fertilizer, and all of that. And one new service that we launched that we found quite interesting for farmers is mechanization. So on our platform, they can order services that usually previously were only available to large-scale farmers. So they can order plowing services, they can order harrowing services, and just like the last speaker mentioned, they can now also order drone services for spraying and for other services that they need on their farms. Then eventually, one area that we really struggled with, and Lisa, we engaged with you and team to quite some extent, is how do you also enable finance to smallholders? How do you get big banks, smaller banks, MFIs to do this in a way that works for the farmer? And to be honest, is an area we've struggled quite a lot, but eventually we're making some progress. We've decided to use our own capital to test what works, to test scoring systems. How do you score a smallholder farmer who has 15 acres but does not use any mobile payments or platforms? Their data does not exist at all. So we are running a lot of trials around that, trying to offer a product to other ecosystem players that can help them target smallholders and deliver finance to them in a responsible way. And we've also worked a lot on crop insurance so that farmers are protected against weather. We've found generally very low uptake from our farmer database unless it's bundled with other services that we offer. But we're seeing a lot more movement in that area. And finally, all of this work to what end? We look at the yield that farmers are getting. Can we improve those yields? And then can we connect them to markets that are sustainable? So we guarantee every farmer in our platform, if they engage with our ecosystem partners, that there will be a market for what they produce. And it seems a bit crazy, but we say that if someone else won't buy it, we will buy it as DigiFarm, right? But so far we found that in Kenya particularly, and I think this is probably repeated across the globe and potentially across Africa, that demand is actually quite strong. What is still lacking is quality, affordable supply to meet that demand. So far, access to market has been, if you like, some of the easier areas for us to actually, plug into and get success from. So it's an end-to-end platform. We hope to improve it over time, listening to farmers and listening to other stakeholders in the system. We tend to say that we are not here to replace actors in the system. If they're adding value, we are here to make sure they can do what they're doing, but just better by providing information, providing data, providing connectivity, and the things that we are very good at doing. So back to you, Lisa, and I'm happy to answer any questions that come through.
Thanks, Amandi. We're starting to get some good questions through on the chat. Encourage you to continue to leverage in. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and just start the questions off with. I'll just kick it off with one question per panelist, per CEO, director, panelist. And maybe Amandi, I'll start with you since we're just coming off your presentation. I think DigiFarm is really unique because it has managed to scale and leverage the power of a mobile network operator. We know that there are a lot of other mobile network operators across Africa and around the world that are looking to DigiFarm. What would you say are the advantages, and what is the role of the mobile network operator, who's been really kind of the driver of the mobile money revolution across Africa? What can mobile network operators really do in this space that's transformative?
Yes, so Lisa, thanks. So if I look back into Safaricom and what we leverage on that others could potentially look at is, one is technology. So we invest a lot of money on systems, connectivity. We are probably one of the largest pool of developers in East Africa. So being able to leverage that capability to develop solutions that work for smallholder farmers has been a big advantage. I think if there was no Safaricom, it would be very difficult for DigiFarm to do this in the amount of time that we've done it. So I think that leverage of technology is actually quite important. The other bit that we found very useful is data. So a lot of the telecom operators around the globe and around Africa have access to quite a bit of data on our supplier, on our customer base, both B2C and also B2B. And that data has been very useful in deciding what we develop, what we do when. So I think that data access has been quite helpful. Maybe a note on data, we struggle quite a lot on how to share that data more openly, right? Because we have data privacy laws. Our customers really trust us, and our mother brand is really based on the trust from our consumers and from our customers. So into the future, how do we work with our customers and consumers to enable them access better services by sharing a bit more of that information and data? And then finally, for especially in Africa, I would say there's still a very big issue around payments. So if you're going to run a platform of millions of customers doing millions of transactions every day, how does money move from one side to the other? And I think telecom providers have a role to play in enabling that efficient and also cost-effective movement of money from buyers to sellers, farmers to manufacturers, and all through the ecosystem. So those three I'd identify as some of the key capabilities we've leveraged from Safaricom to help DigiFarm grow faster.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much. I know in our human-centered design, you know, when you're getting into rural areas and you're asking farmers to begin to participate in the digital world, that trust and the trusted brand is so important. And so leveraging M-Pesa and your agent network, I think has been you know, critical to the scale. I was interested in also going over to Xinyi, back to Xinyi. And a question about the growth of your platform, and it's fascinating to hear how you're able to really balance out supply and demand. One of the things that I think has been really interesting to hear more about from you is how you engage smallholder farmers, how you build trust with them, and how you build their productivity and the quality. You know, we know that for e-commerce platforms to really take root, you've got to be able to match high quality food that consumers will buy. How has Pinduoduo engaged with smallholder farmers? What's worked to bridge that gap, that quality gap and engagement gap?
Thanks, Lisa. So I think you know, for us, I would probably go back to the core principles that our company stands by. So one of our core values is around people first. So what it means at Pinduoduo is we always focus on the users, we focus on the user needs, and of course the consumers on one side, but the farmers as well on the other, right? So for the users, you know, to your question of how do we ensure this quality at an affordable price, we have systems built in to actually factor in consumer feedback. So we know, for instance, consumers value certain things like diversity of produce, quality of produce, getting it in a timely manner, having it at good prices. So how do we have a system whereby consumers can get all of those things? So on our platform, a lot of feedback is being generated. We actually actively incentivize the users to share their feedback on the purchases, and that feeds into our ranking system. So that would naturally impact sort of the visibility of certain products. So that way, you know, farmers who are selling excellent products, providing excellent service, they naturally get more visibility over time. And the opposite occurs, right? For somebody who is selling, you know, low quality products or has very inconsistent quality. And we know that for the farmers, what they care about is, you know, being able to earn more and being able to do so predictably. So what we have done on the platform is basically provide an avenue for demand to be aggregated. And that's why farmers would want to transact with us, right? Because they feel that, hey, actually on Pinduoduo, because there's the team purchase function where, you know, users are incentivized to make purchases in teams of two, they naturally get more orders in a shorter period of time. So this gives them the confidence that, hey, they can actually move very large volumes. They can build up a business on Pinduoduo. And on top of that, we make it very easy and accessible for farmers. So, you know, we have a zero commission policy on agricultural products. So for some of the other types of products, we have started to charge commission, but for agricultural goods, because we see that there's still so much runway for these products to go from the offline world online, you know, we are committed to maintaining zero commission. And at the same time, we provide training through our Doodle Academy to help the farmers navigate and use our platform, as well as train them on, hey, what is the sort of information that you need to provide to consumers? Because at the end of the day, transparency is important. So, you know, sometimes it's just a matter of teaching them, here's how you actually should be labeling or classifying the products, right? When you say large apples, what exactly do you mean, right? Put down, you know, maybe the radius of the apples, maybe do a live stream that helps to build more confidence on the consumer side, you know, because you let them see behind the scenes, right, how the products are being produced. And at the same time, you know, our other big principle is around benefiting all. So we're also actively trying to work with the farmers to show them that we're a partner, right? We're not just a platform for, you know, putting products there for sale. We're also a platform that can bring technology closer to them. And so, you know, the total farm example that I mentioned earlier, we have some farms where we've incorporated drone spraying and drip irrigation, And that has led to significant savings in terms of the inputs that's required. So 15% reduction in labor and 30% in terms of the pesticide usage. So for the farmer, they feel that, hey, actually, this is a platform that understands what it means to run a business. This is a platform that knows that you have to demonstrate economic benefits of technology in order to drive the wider adoption. And we're also trying to bring in more youth into agriculture, because this is going to be what takes us forward, right, for the next few decades, because it has to be the younger generation that steps in, that feels like, yeah, we can actually see a future in agriculture, and we can see agriculture becoming more digital. We can also see how it is becoming something that is an attractive career opportunity. So our smart agriculture competition, for example, we work together with the FAO as well as with universities like Wageningen University, China Agricultural University, to really bring in younger teams with backgrounds in AI and machine learning and show them, hey, this can be applied to agriculture. At the same time, this is also something that we can demonstrate to the farmers that this is not something that's just hocus pocus. It actually has very tangible benefits, and we demonstrated, for instance, 3 times higher yields in strawberry production in just the first year of the competition last year. So I think these are a few tangible ways in which we try to bring more people on board. We are a very open platform, so we always believe in trying to work with all kinds of partners, whether it's on the logistics side, on the distribution end. How do we work with cold chain to make it more efficient? And we believe that at the end of the day, because of this focus on users' needs, on farmers, and understanding where they're coming from, that's how we've been able to scale and to ensure that all these stakeholders are willing to engage with us for the longer term.
Getting myself off mute. Thank you so much. That's really inspiring, and I know that some of our partners in Africa are just beginning to be able to kind of step into that smartphone environment, that rich engagement environment that it sounds like you've been able to leverage, for real scale. I'd like to just move over to Raj, because the Indian context, there's so much that Raj is trying to do in the Indian context. It's very similar, but obviously greater constraints. And Raj, I'm just wondering, we're hearing Shinyi talk about, needing the smartphones, needing the infrastructure. Oh, I see that Raj has an exclamation point on him as well. So that may mean his internet. This is just always the way.
Maybe just my video, Lisa. Can you hear me?
Okay, no worries. Yeah, actually, what my question was for you, there was a question in the chat that was kind of similar to my question. The question in the chat was, will the social enterprise approach work for you commercially in India? What more is needed to help you, really be able to scale your work in India? What type of infrastructure do you have to have in place? What kind of adjustments are you having to make as you build your digital ecosystem and really try to drive the social inclusion that you're looking for? What else is needed? Raj, I don't know if we can hear you. Are you on mute? Okay, Raj, we might have missed something that you said there. There was a little blocker. There's a little blocker. You may need to go ahead and say it again.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
We can hear you now. Yeah, very good.
I'm sorry, something wrong with my connection, I guess. So, sorry, the question was about the social commerce, right? Which I did.
Right.
Sorry.
Right. Basically, social commerce. Can you make this sustainable with this type of approach, and what more is needed to really help you or to help Galgudi reach scale in India? Given that you don't have the same infrastructure supports that we have in China. How are you looking at this?
Yeah, the first thing is social commerce has a tremendous potential. Particularly we are seeing it as a conduit for accessing the rural livelihood players in terms of whether they are producers or consumers or the service players. And most of the times, they lack the digital skills. So the social commerce route, we connect all these players, and we have seeing great potential already. and we are growing tremendously on this. And coming to infrastructure, and there are many things that that would be needed, but the biggest, apart from investments, infrastructure, operational teams, and one of the key issue that we face is data related, like standardization, interoperability, and data management. I'll tell you an example, Sindhuri mango from South India is traded as gulab khas in North India. This is just a simple example of the dire state where all the data sets are disconnected, have their own set of local standards, and are often used as a business advantage by the middlemen. So for example, in our core services, we face issues where micro-targeting is a challenge without commodity standardization. And expanding an answer to a particular question to other farmers who have not asked but would benefit from this particular answer is not possible without profile standards. Enabling the discovery of products for trade is a big challenge where local names and standards do not interoperate. And in Kalgudi, we are attempted to solve this by classifying all the produce, standardizing the quality attributes and trade parameters. But this helped us to go to some level, but it's still a small, very small dent in the problem. We're currently working with the government of India on classifying the produce at large scale, followed by standardizing the other data sets. But this would be I would think that the biggest need that enables the tech companies and the farmers at large, for smooth flow of information and trade across the borders. This, in fact, needs to be taken at the international level so that we see that happening across the borders as well. Thank you. I think I'm
Thanks.
not.
No, that's great. Hang on, maybe I'm on mute. No, I'm not. Okay, so we'll direct a last question to Yebeltal, and then a couple of quick questions to the full group to respond. Yebeltal, we've been talking a lot about how to engage in the rural areas and how to engage farmers. One of the things that's really tremendous about Twiga is that end-to-end engagement and what you're doing in urban areas with urban retailers, getting fresh food. What would you say are really kind of the because from what I understand, I mean, just 80% of the urban informal retailers in Nairobi are buying food from Twiga Foods. What does it take? What are the things that Twiga Foods has managed to do to make that breakthrough, to get affordable, fresh food all the way down to the last mile in those neighborhoods?
Thank you. I think it starts with our ability to aggregate at the farmer level. You can imagine a banana producer that has a small farm that produces 3-4 bananas. He is not able to take his bananas or her bananas to the market. Then they'll have to take it to the next level, who consolidates it with either a motorbike or a small car and take it to the marketplace, where it's consolidated again into a pickup, then consolidated again into a truck, and it creates a multiple layer, which basically, one, affects the quality of the product, secondly, increases the cost of bringing this into the market. So primarily, our ability to consolidate this at a farmer level, we have officers in the banana and other fruits and vegetable growing areas that actually get to the farms and are able to predict by when certain crop is going to be ready at a specific farmer, be able to pick the produce from the farm, eliminating the post-harvest losses, being able to pay immediately on collection, and being able to consolidate large amounts of fresh produce in a very short time and be able to bring it into the city is one huge advantage we have. And if you look at it from a market point of view, our vendors, so our customers, are able to see what is available on our platform and place order today, both fast-moving consumer goods, staples, and fresh produce, fruits and vegetables, be able to place today and get their deliveries tomorrow. Because of our ability to consolidate that demand and the data that we sit on real-time demand that is being placed, we are able now to source from manufacturers and farmers basically on demand, exactly what is required, and be able to supply that. And we've done this over the years and build the confidence with our customers, and our customer base is growing. And during the COVID time, we actually experienced revenue growth 8x of what we used to be prior to COVID, as markets shrunk, as behaviors and consumption patterns changed. We were basically ahead of the curve. And now with a lot of partnership we have with fintech players, we are able now to provide other solutions, be able to provide loans to our customers. We have extended, you can now, trade in airtime, electricity token, etc., using our platform. And unlike other times where you have to have, multiple mobile companies, scratch cards to be able to sell airtime, you can actually load what we have created as an e-wallet within our platform and be able to trade with from your e-wallet, sell airtime, electricity tokens, and we're looking at providing other services like insurance, etc., to our customers going forward. So it is that ability to consolidate the demand and be able to deliver against it in a cycle of 24 hours to our customers that has enabled us get to the scale that we are today. Lisa.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, I think that one thing that we're seeing is that digital behaviors have shifted over COVID, and that this seems to be a permanent shift. So I think it's a lot of lessons for the food system and food system transformation. We need to wrap up this panel, but there are some interesting questions in the chat that are kind of general for everyone to answer. So what I'll do is I'll pitch the three of them out there, and each of our four speakers can take one and just speak very briefly to it. So a couple of the questions have been around tips for scale. This panel represents just tremendous experience and scale in many different parts of the reference model in food systems. What are the tips to breaking through to scale? The second one was around what is the role of the private sector? How has the private sector enabled you? If so, what is the government's role in helping your organizations to reach that scale? And then the last one, there were several questions about data sharing, and I know Amandi mentioned this a bit, about the constraints. But what is it? I think that many players look around these large scale, your large scale solutions as great vectors for other types of innovation within the ecosystem. What works for you all in terms of sharing data? And what are the best conditions for you to be able to share data into the ecosystem? So that's three questions on tips for scale, role of private sector, and how can we best share data for innovation and scale. And maybe I'll let ladies go first. Shinyi, would you like to take one of those on and just give us a few of your thoughts?
So I just typed a fairly long response on the data question in chat, because I know it was one of the earliest questions that was asked. And then I think I'll take the first one on just tips for scale. So I've called out earlier in my remarks that China is very fortunate in terms of having that very developed digital infrastructure, as well as the investments on the physical infrastructure side. But I think apart from those factors that were really enablers for us to grow rapidly, thinking back on the Pinduoduo journey, one way in which we scaled very quickly was also with this idea of a team purchase, which allowed us to build out a user base very quickly without having to spend heavily on sales and marketing. So I think it came back to the idea that actually, everybody's got friends, everybody is connected with more people, and that purchasing can be influenced, particularly for things like agricultural products, which sometimes whether you eat a banana today or an apple, you're not too fussed about it. So based on that sort of notion, the founding team actually built out this idea of a team purchase, and initially with team sizes that were like 20, 10 people, etc., And as we grew larger, the teams would become smaller. But the idea there was to get the users to help mobilize others, right? So instead of you individually buying something for $20, if you bring in other people and you form a team of a certain size, you and your friends can enjoy the product for say 15 or something like that. So given that the benefits are being shared directly with the consumers became our advocates. And that was how we were able to really get a lot of traction in the early days. And of course, with a very tight focus on quality control as well, that was how we built up our reputation. So building on top of that, we were able to leverage the infrastructure that had been developed on the digital and physical side.
Okay, thank you so much, Shinyi. And I know we're getting close to time, so I'll just ask Amandi and Raj and Yebetal just really quickly, just 1 minute. What's a top hit on the question of tricks to scale, data sharing, or how government can help your types of innovations grow? Amandi, would you like to go first?
Yes, Lisa. So I'll take the one around tips for scale, just to talk a little bit about partnerships. So we couldn't grow to millions of farmers if we took off as DigiFarm wanted to do everything. So I know it's often spoken about, but implementing it can be rather difficult. So to give a real example, so we talk to people like Yara, Syngenta, manufacturers, and actually agree prices that are actually better delivered to farmers. So without these partners, whatever we are offering is of very little value to farmers. It's just another platform. But when they get in there and find partners who can give them services at prices and at quality that matters, then we can grow. And we know that we can get to 7 million farmers, 5 million farmers, and it kind of doesn't matter because, well, these partners that we have can also grow with us, and they can also grow beyond borders. So one thing we've really emphasized in DigiFarm is bringing on board onto the ecosystem partners that can scale with us, partners who identify with our vision and what we are trying to make available to our customers.
Thank you so much. Okay, Raj, can we call on you next?
Yes, I would like to take this data sharing. So we haven't found much issues with data sharing as an issue because primarily we need to look into why are we sharing the data and do we have the acceptance for it? When we talk to farmers about sharing their data, particularly whether profile data or farm data or with respect to their transactional data for either insurance or or connecting them for further marketplaces, we don't have any issues. But we need to be careful about having this data going into typical advertisement channels or the other aspects of we're non-related companies. But otherwise we keep data to personal, but with acceptance, we share the data with related services providers.
Okay, great. And thank you. And finally, Yebetal, which of the questions would you like to give a thought on?
I was going to add on to the scalable piece. I think between Zine and Mondi have addressed it significantly. Just to add on, I think if your solution is sustainable and is a win-win and has purpose and impact, and you have a proven concept and a scalable solution, these days what we are seeing increasingly across the continent, capital is flowing in towards such solutions for scale, and that this is a time to really maximize on available capital for scale, working on purpose and scalable win-win solutions that are scalable and sustainable.
Thanks so much. I think that the last question we had was about the government role. Just very briefly, I know we're coming to the end of the session. I'd like to ask Tule Lanea, who is the coordinator of the Agricultural Transformation Office here in Kenya. Tule is working on plans to create an innovation hub here in Kenya to support the types of players that we've been hearing from, DigiFarm, Twiga, and many others. Tule, I know we're almost out of time. We need to hand it over to Parmesh to wrap up. But what are your thoughts after hearing from our innovators about the best roles for the public sector particularly through innovation hubs, to be supporting this kind of food systems transformation and leveraging digital and data assets?
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for the question. Sorry, I won't put my video on. I'm currently in the field, so and I wouldn't want you to break off. So yeah, look, it was great to hear from the private sector perspective, and all partners being private sector. As you mentioned, we participated in helping develop the playbook. So for us, we recognize that government plays a pivotal role in terms of coordination, collaboration, and creating that enabling environment, right? As Xiyin mentioned, even in China, they have quite an investment in infrastructure, and that availability to all players is important, so that you don't create monopolies or single successful entities, but rather create the ability for many players to work on digital innovations in food systems, ranging from our farmers all the way to production elements within our input service providers, digital advisory services, where we've seen quite a few of our partners here have talked about, and as well as access to market, because that's important, for our farmers to move from just being subsistence farmers into the market. They still need to have access to the market, and I think leveraging innovations such as the ones that were presented here and many more, that we have worked with, even as the Ministry of Agriculture in Kenya, to ensure that the farmers continue to have a widening scope of where they can sell their produce. So it's really heartening to hear, especially from the CEO's perspective, how they've worked and where they see government supporting activities. I didn't want to take too much time, Lisa. Is that all right?
That's fine. Maybe you can just give everyone a little bit of your vision for the Innovation Hub in Kenya. I know this is something at the UN Food Summit that's really kind of risen to the top as a possible driver for innovation. What are a couple of things that you think an Innovation Hub hosted by a government entity, could be pursuing to drive this kind of innovation to scale?
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. That's a good question. To be honest, when we started looking at having an innovation hub for East Africa, well, we had to scale it down, obviously, to Kenya to start to make sure that we could get it done. It's more about, reducing the duplication of effort. That's how we started. And to be quite honest, the waste of resources that we've seen from trying to duplicate and replicate the same activities that private sector is already doing, and some CSOs or non-state actors are working on. So the point of the Innovation Hub is to leverage off of all the work that all the many and the proliferation, and we're happy to see it, of digital platforms in the food systems, as I mentioned, so that we can have a real ecosystem where we're sharing data, of course, making sure that it's private, if it's anonymized if we're using personal data, but we do need to be able to see what impact we're having, on the ground from all these data platforms. And like I said, for us, we recognize that there is not that much capital or resources availability. How do you use that to minimize any duplications and leverage off of the infrastructure that government has already done? And the reason why maybe government may not be the best in terms of our innovation, but we have the people at mind, right? Private sector, I heard Omondi, was it Omondi? Yeah, mention it from Digifarm, that we're not in the business of just doing the business. It's to make money, right? Government isn't to make money. It's to make sure that the service is available to the public. So it's about creating that balance so that you create the enabling environment for all the private sector players to make their money and have impact. But we want to now be able to scale that beyond the few counties or areas of focus.
Thanks, Tule, and also thanks so much to you, Government of Kenya, Government of Ethiopia for participating, and India for participating so much in the development of the playbook. And I think with that, I'll hand it over to Parmesh for the final kind of closing remarks and summarization. Thanks so much to everyone.
Thanks, Elisa, and thanks to all the panelists for a very stimulating discussion today, which has raised a number of issues, and thanks to all the panelists for also raising these issues. But I would like to bring in Adam Stu, who is our global lead in IFC, because IFC, the bank has, the World Bank is a group, has IFC also has a significant presence in this field. So Adam is our global lead in IFC for agriculture inputs, technology, primary production, processing of agriculture commodities, and IFC has a large portfolio in that. So Adam, over to you. Can you give your reaction to the market ideas discussed today and also talk about what IFC is doing in this space?
Sure. Thanks, Ramesh. So yeah, maybe just to talk briefly about IFC within the World Bank Group, we're really operating in that space where we leverage the knowledge of the World Bank and its policy leadership in this emerging markets context in order to interface with the private sector, which is where we make our investments. And maybe just a couple words about the trajectory to sort of where we are right now. So if you go back 20 years ago when IFC was investing sort of at the intersection of technology and agriculture, it was typically established companies investing in technology and IFC funding the integration of that technology. Over time, we've added advisory services to the investment offer we have. And these advisory services, in the context of agribusiness transactions, might be taking the form of capacity building for smaller farmers or producer organizations. It might be helping client companies adopt best practices or technology to take food safety to another level. But in order to be able to really help companies that are driving this technology and innovation that support agriculture, we started really building out the window we have where we make venture investments directly in companies that are leading this disruption and that will have an important impact on food systems in emerging market countries and indeed the world. And so, of course, the underlying technologies are connected to sectors across the board, but I'll, of course, talk here just very briefly about some of the investments in this venture space that are in the agri-food system. And so if we think about marketplaces and the farmer facing end of it versus, let's say, the retail facing end of it, I'll start out maybe a bit with the farmer facing platforms. And here, we've been working with companies that are both, let's say, e-commerce platform native, as well as companies that already have a significant presence vis-a-vis farmers that have been historically bricks and mortar, and where we've been able to help them go into the digital space, establish digital platforms. So Copaval, for example, in Chile would be a good example for this. And then Agrofertil in Paraguay as another company in the distribution space that's building out digital in order to interface with its clients, which are the farmers. Or to take an example of a company that is pure online platform, that would be Agrostar in India. And if we think about the other parts of the food system, we've also invested in companies such as Zhengming in China or Snowman in India. And here the common theme is, in some sense, leapfrogging the storage and transport solutions that might have been quite dated, and helping really reduce food waste at the end, making sure that efficiencies are gained in reaching marketplaces with all of the climate benefit that has. And also one of the things that's been relevant in terms of cold chain is that's also had knock-on effects if we think of medicine and vaccine distribution. Waycool in India would be another example of a company in this intermediate space where it's leveraging data to optimize the collection, delivery, and food order fulfillment. That is its business. And then some of these companies are also building relationships with farmers to assist in the production, the planning, and integrating ERP platforms and provide digital financing. And if we think now on the consumer-facing end of food systems, IFC is invested in Shaldal in Bangladesh or Big Basket in India. And one of the things which we heard a little bit about today was the supply chain and COVID. And I think we can see that their supply chains were indeed stressed. But what I think is also important is, as a general matter, these businesses were able to demonstrate that even in the face of COVID, they have very, very robust and resilient systems. And then Twiga, which we also heard about today, is an IFC client. And so they've obviously been able to bring enormous efficiencies in their end-to-end solution between the farmers and the retailers for produce. So I think IFC's basically laid a good foundation for the investments we're making and the companies that are driving this type of innovation. And I think when I think about what's going to be going forward, in addition to being able to expand upon the work we're doing in this space, I think we're also going to see some of the more historical IFC clients that are established and perhaps bigger players looking to adopt a lot of this technology. And so I think we're also going to have a role in terms of these companies integrating that technology into what they're doing and making the corner of the food system that they operate in that much more efficient, that much lower energy intense, to lower the energy intensity. And so I think this is sort of what we're also looking forward to as the next phase and where we're going. And when I think of some of the solutions that these companies are looking for, they're looking for everything from last meter traceability to further reductions in nutrient loss for ready-to-eat foods. So there's a lot of work to do. It's very, very exciting, and we're very pleased to look forward into this space. So with that, I'll hand it back to Parmesh.
Parmesh, you are on mute.
Ash, I think you're on mute. I don't think we can hear you.
I need a little bit of a coffee now, I think, at this stage. But I want to thank Adam, because he has, in a very short period, given us the whole gamut of things IFC is involved in. It is thinking from the spectrum of from the production side to the consumer side to all the other issues which are coming in. And I think this playbook is just being written. I think there will be more entries into this playbook as we go forward, and hopefully we'll update the playbook as we go. And I think we are looking at very exciting possibilities. Through this series, we have discovered many innovations which are happening. IFC is already looking at some of those disruptive innovations also there. To me, what is very important today, conversation, it brought farmer-facing, consumer-facing, service providers, the agribusinesses, and the digital innovators together, and which are what we call is the platform and ecosystem building. And I think that's what we would like to invest as we go forward as World Bank, is to really invest in things which can go to scale, things which can help build the ecosystem, policies which can enable that, the overriding constraints of data sharing and platforms which can lead to that. And just to let you know that we are working on innovation accreditation and acceleration facility, which will allow all these innovations to be accredited and then scaled up in a more systematic way. So because I think what this market playbook has done a very good service to bring all these cases at one place so that we can understand the various aspects from many perspectives there. And I think I want to just thank Lisa for shepherding this today extremely well, and also Helena for bringing the consumer perspective there. All of these activities require a webinar of their own. So Helena, thanks for bringing the consumer perspective, and all the panelists today. I think I really appreciate the way you have shared things, not only in the webinar, but I'm seeing in the chat you are answering questions very diligently, and you have responded to all the questions which have come in to the chat. You have been very open and responsive to do that. So I would like to thank all of you, and we would like to build this collaboration and partnership with you as we go forward there. And so we are going to take a break during the holidays. Happy holidays to everyone. And we are back in January with a webinar with a venture capital fund, agri-tech called Omnivore in India. And they will bring in all their innovator panel to talk with us at that space. And they will range from everything from livestock to aquaculture to agriculture. And look forward to this. Please join the network. Please write to us and if you want to join this network and to be on the mailing list for all the knowledge and learning activities. Goodbye, everyone, and have a good night, good morning, and good afternoon, wherever you are. Bye-bye.